Good morning, everybody. Morning, William.
Good morning, Helen. Hello.
How are you this morning?
Very well, actually. Just got back from the shops as it started snowing, so I'm pleased to have avoided that.
It kind of feels a bit confused. It was snowing and now it's really sunny.
Yeah, no, it's not nice weather to be out in when you're not wearing some sort of winter protection. To be honest, it's
A
nice to
huge-
watch. It's lovely to watch go past the window. Not so nice to actually be inside, I think.
That is true. So we could wait for people to join us. However, what I thought is probably best, people can watch Facebook Lives after they've, they're not live anymore. So we might as well just press ahead. It was a bit of an impromptu idea to do this today. And we may or may not have other people joining us. So we'll just carry on the conversation. And it might just enlighten some people. It might, the idea was, it is Autism Awareness Week. We call it Autism Acceptance Week, in line with the autistic advocacy community, who feel that acceptance is what is required, not just awareness. But you can talk about that if you'd like to at some point. And I know a lot of autistic adults have, strong opinions on that. So we thought what we'd do is just give a platform to some of our autistic staff and volunteers. And I cannot be more, I'm just going to be a bit gushy now, William. I cannot be more proud of the fact that you are on here with me, simply because I met you about 19 years ago. You were one of the first young people you were in that first session that I ever turned up to at CASPA as a drama tutor.
Yeah, I remember hating you with a passion.
Yeah, you did. And
well, I mean, it was a love-hate relationship, but it was there was this woman who was incredibly animated, coming in and insisting that we all do things, and it was my idea of hell. But of course now I go and do exactly the same thing to others. I wander around quite animated, telling them that they should get involved in activities. So I can sort of understand that better now. I think what you were trying to achieve, what you did achieve, I think.
Well, I mean, I bounced in there. I was about 26, 27 maybe. And I had a theatre background, as you know, and I worked previously with teenage parents, young offenders, kind of vulnerable and challenging groups. But I had never, as far as I knew, met autistic people. Not people that were then defined as being on the high functioning end of the autistic spectrum that I was aware of. I'm 45. I was at school with all kinds of different people, right? There were as many autistic people then as there are now. There was just not the diagnosis. There wasn't the recognition. There wasn't. So I kind of was like, wow, this group of people are incredible. Like the depth of humanity that I saw in your group, like the intellect, the humor, quite dark humor, quite a lot of the time, the kind of self-possessed, how the young people carried themselves was very like strong of who they really were, but it felt like there was also a lot of pain in the group, and that's what I sensed. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. These people are incredible. Why are they in so much pain as a community? I mean, the autistic young people that were there, their parents, I was just like, let's hang on a minute, this isn't right. And that's what then drove me just to think, right, I can definitely do something to help. I wasn't sure what, but then that's why I dedicated the last nearly 20 years to working initially with the parents, but then with all of the incredible staff and young people and now adults that come into CASPA. So, Will, could you just give a slight potted history then of? So you were at CASPA nearly 20 years ago as a young person, and then what happened in the between then and now?
Well,
it doesn't have to be too personal or deep. I just kind of
good.
I think you went away and then came back again. That's
I went away. There we go. I went away and came back again. No, of course, CASPA was actually started by my parents along with 4 others, because they wanted somewhere for me to socialize. And I think a lot of people obviously grow out of that need. I think for a lot of people, what places like CASPA provide really is the opportunity to test skills, to gain experience in handling dealing with other people. And then, of course, a lot of them go off to university. I remember one of the first 5 people actually went off to university. And while I don't really know exactly what happened to him in the end, I remember him finding it okay. So there are people who are very quiet, but then gain skills and experience in socializing. And while there are a lot of people I saw recently who've been at CASPA for a very long time because they enjoy it, I think it can be ideal when they sort of go off. And I mean, that's what I did. I sort of went off to find my own way. It wasn't entirely successful, but it's otherwise been, I would say it's mostly been okay. It's but yeah, no, so I left CASPA, I think probably when I was about 15, 16 maybe, and then I very recently started volunteering again, and really enjoying it. It's fascinating how much has changed, and at the same time how little has changed. It's still a fantastic place. It's now entertaining to chase after unruly children rather than being the unruly child. And the problem that
I would say you were not unruly. I would say you were subversive.
Subversive, yes. Subversive may be a politer way to put it. But yeah, no, it's so yeah, long story short, I left. I went literally when it started, and then left probably around age 16, and now I'm back as a volunteer. And it's still taking quite a lot of adjustment getting used to it. I mean, it's not upsetting or distressing, it's a new experience, and new experiences take quite a lot of time to fully understand. Yeah. Oh, I keep pressing Control S to save rather than Control D to mute my microphone.
It's really okay. You can stay unmuted. I have somebody making toast in the room, so
there's protocol. I always.
Okay, of course. Sorry. Yeah. Yes. No problem. Okay, amazing. So what I'm going to do, Will, is first of all, I'd like to say that you can imagine why, as a person, I've now really pleased and excited that you are back, because for us over the years we have seen young people, struggling with life, struggling being an autistic person in a world that's not built for autistic or neurodivergent people. And we do make a point of trying to feed them back into the CASPA system, if you know what I mean. It sounds like a system, but the community, because there are no better staff to have, there are no better volunteers to have than people that have lived experience of neurodivergence or being autistic in this world. And it's happened a number of times. First of all with James Lyle, then with Lucy. People come back and they get back involved. And for us, that is how it should be. I mean, we are moving towards a situation where CASPA is no longer a charity serving and supporting autistic people, but also being led by, run by, and staffed by autistic people. And for me, that is the dream, right? That is brilliant. So I'm going to introduce another lady into the conversation, and she has a very different experience from you, Will, because she didn't find CASPA until about 18 months ago. So she's lived, she will tell you, some years in a different space from having this kind of support. But she's come on very quickly and is now a staff member. So I'm going to introduce Ellen into the proceedings. Morning, Ellen.
Hello.
Hi, Ellen.
So not even 18 months ago, it's barely 8 months.
Really? Okay, I think COVID's just kind of wiped out the last 2 years for me. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, right. So Ellen, would you mind just giving us a little brief summary as why you're here?
Yeah, so I got diagnosed less than a year ago. It's still under a year. 13th of April last year, I got my autism diagnosis, which is crazy because I was 30 and had gone through school, had gone through university, had gone through work, and just sort of coped or struggled. It was never really at this thriving end of things, apart from maybe as a young child. But it was school I bullied my way through. So it was sort of just at the coping and struggling, gradually getting worse all the way through. And having my diagnosis last year has made such a difference, because I've been able to find people who understand me. I've been able to get support. I now feel I've moved out of the struggling, coping zone. I'm now moving towards the striving zone. Definitely still wouldn't feel confident to say I'm definitely in there all the time, but I don't think anyone is. But it's definitely, I'm in a much better place than I was previously. And in a huge amount of that is down to the work from CASPA. The support I've gotten through CASPA, the friendships I've made through CASPA, being able to then work with CASPA is helping me regain some of my confidence and things like that. And it makes a huge difference when you don't feel like you belong in the world, to suddenly find a place where you do feel like you belong. And that's the space that CASPA has created for me.
Wow. Thank you, Ellen. I know that was very emotional. And I know it's deep stuff. It's really, really deep. And that's why it is important. I haven't asked you to share that much, but I know that it is important to be honest, if we can, about our struggles. And then we can identify areas which really help, and that helps other people. And I think all three of us will probably know that pain, the best use of our own pain is to help others, right? Is to channel it into relieving other people's difficulties and pain themselves. So thank you, Ellen. That was really amazing for you to share so quickly such a deep experience. So you now work at CASPA as first aid extraordinaire. You're currently doing the thing that, I love, policy writing and policy reviewing. I think what we're quite good at CASPA is seeing people's strengths and seeing people's specialisms. With you, it was a case of, okay, this lady loves, she's first aid trainer, qualified. This lady loves words. You're a wordsmith, a bit like our Jenny. And yeah, so, there's a place for you to absolutely help our organisation. And why should you not be paid to do that work? It's like, I don't know how you feel about that, about CASPA's kind of, and Will, you might have an opinion. What do you feel about CASPA's approach at trying to get you guys back in terms of volunteers and employees?
Well, I mean, it's too soon to tell, really, to be honest. So far, I have no complaints, obviously. If I had, I would have made some. I'm very, very happy with the way things are moving with the patients. But with the encouragement, patience, but also the desire to move forward. I appreciate that a lot. I think it's brilliant, but I don't really know well enough. I haven't had quite enough experience yet. I'm still learning a lot, and I don't like to make sudden judgment. I like to have a lot of information available before I pass broad judgments on how things are going. Although I can say I'm very happy, and I feel like I've been given all of the support I could possibly need and asked for. So I would say I'm happy with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think you definitely find things that we're good at and find our interests and things like that. I mean, I do think the majority of people, whether autistic or not, if you mention the word policy writing to them and ask them to do it, probably run a mile. But that's something that I really enjoy doing. And to be able to do that, I'm quite happy being able to do that and just, do that in my own time and things like that. I don't have to do it. It's not a case of you need to do it Monday 12 till 3. I can do it when it works for me. So having that flexibility as well, I find really helpful.
Yeah. I think you're
obviously
right.
First aid, I do on about first aid quite a lot. So delighted to be able to get back training with that as well. And, you know, doing that for members and staff. But then also being able to, when there is a first aid event needed, when something happens at a club or something, that I'm able to do that as well. And be able to help people that way.
Yeah, so applying your specialisms. So you were right to identify a bit earlier that you said something like everybody does, and it wasn't about this exact thing. However, I think our approach of flexible working and support and seeing each other as human beings, not necessarily commodities, or not having, like KPIs and things that you have to meet, you have to have this policy by whenever, and having a more, I guess, human or gentle approach to achieving what we need to achieve is good for everybody, right? And unfortunately, now what we've done is we've gone into this, we've gone already to a subject I wanted to talk about with you guys. But unfortunately, it feels that much of the world of work isn't like that. And as we know, and I'm going to, reel out the depressing statistics around autistic people being employed. So at the moment, around 22% of autistic adults in this country, which is well over 500,000 people, are surviving on welfare benefits, are not in paid employment. And for me, there is absolutely no reason other than a lack of understanding and a lack of flexibility. And it's interesting because the general disabled population, those statistics in the last 10 years have improved massively in terms of employment. People, it's been written in law, making reasonable adjustments. Disabled people have to be included and have been more so. And obviously there's a lot of battle to go, but the statistics for autistic people haven't changed in 10 years. So whatever is happening is not working. I don't know what you feel about that, about work, like reflecting on what we've just talked about and what you said is it works for you at CASPA. How do you feel about this world of employment and being autistic and trying to get work? Will, yeah.
Well, it's difficult to say. I think it is obviously very, very hard. I think one of the problems, one of the things I feel is that you have to be able to make adjustments. You have to be able to teach people on the spectrum to be able to make adjustments themselves as well. If you have a job that needs to start at 9 and finish at 5, you have to be there on time. So for some people, I guess the adjustments are finding work that they can do in their own time. So if for whatever reason they're having a bad week and can't wake up on time, they can, they can do it whenever, because there's plenty of people who will get things done and will actually get things done. They just may not do it at a usual hour. So understanding people's abilities to do that, and of course with this new online working nonsense that we've had forced on us. I don't like it. I like being there in person, frankly. It may be unusual, but recognizing that there are some people, or recognizing when employing people, that there are people out there who are perfectly capable of carrying out that particular job you want done, and maybe superb at it, but maybe not in the way you might expect. They might need to do more work from home, and they may get the job done flawlessly. They may be the best person for the job, but if you don't acknowledge that they might have some difficulties, you'll never find that. I am genuinely surprised to learn just how bad the statistics are, to be honest. But I think also recognizing that we're all individuals, and there's a lot of behavior I've seen from CASPA staff even during the first aid training. It was animated. It was a fun environment, and you wonder who is getting judged as sort of autistic, whose behavior is being said, if you behave in a certain way, if you're on the spectrum, you can have people kind of think, oh, that's a spectrum thing. Where in reality, there are some people who do get quite animated, but aren't on the spectrum. And so when we make adjustments, it's important we don't make so many adjustments that we end up just sort of treating normal behavior as abnormal, because we're so busy focusing on a diagnostic criteria.
Oh, that's really interesting, Will. When I do quite a lot of talks and trainings and, autism acceptance kind of stuff with employers. So recently I've done quite a lot in schools with teachers, TAs, etc. And recently we've done the London Fire Brigade. I've had input with the Royal Geographic Society. We're talking to Bromley Football Club about doing training with their staff and all the rest of it to help make environments more autistic inclusive, both as employers, but also as public spaces or public front, facing professions. And very often, and a head teacher recently said, when I do the kind of first big thought storm of, what is autism? A head teacher said, I don't think I know enough about autism. And I said, I think by the end of this session, you'll find out that you do, or you don't need to, because in essence, because it's so complex and because maybe employers are thinking, oh, but I don't understand autism. I don't know how to make these adjustments. I don't really know. It makes it simple because you just be kind and compassionate, and you listen, and you see a person as an individual, and you meet their needs as the individual. So you don't actually need to be an autism expert to include autistic people in your environment, right? And usually I do swear at this point in a training, and I won't do it because we're in a public space, but I usually say it's really quite simple. Just don't be a bleep. And for me, it is that simple. But I don't know what you feel about that. But it feels like that what you just said, Will, really resonates, because you don't have to make all these tiny kind of adjustments for each individual person because you think, oh, they're autistic and they're neurodivergent and they're ADHD and blah, blah, blah. Actually, you can just have conversations and find out what people need and try to meet those needs.
Yeah, I think sorry, Ellen, I'll say this very quickly and then I'll yield the floor to you. I think if I was applying for a job and an employer sort of came over to me and put their arm around my shoulder and quietly asked me if I needed my own safe space, I think I'd tell them to piss off. Sorry, I'm really sorry. Sorry.
We try not to swear, but yeah. I totally and utterly understand where you're coming from. No, go for it.
Little unguarded there. I've been very good at moderating my language. But I'd be very, 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 very insulted by that. So it's about being human and actually listening rather than just looking at a book with a list of criteria and saying, oh, I should offer this person a safe space. I should offer them rubberized shoes so they don't make so much noise, or whatever bizarre things American psychoanalysts are telling us that autistic people need. You know what they're like.
Ellen.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Going back to what Will said about being animated at the first aid course, I purposely didn't use any PowerPoints because I knew that would not work with that particular group of people. One member of staff did say to me afterwards, she fully expected to only be able to stay an hour. That after an hour, she would be bored out of her tree and she'd want to leave. She didn't. She stayed. She found it interesting. She found it engaging. That it was definitely, I wasn't bothered if people were getting up at the back of the room and stretching or doing their own thing. You know, I still carried on with the training, and it wasn't sort of, can you sit down? And it wasn't a typical training session was how it was put to me afterwards.
Can I ask you a question about that, Ellen? with your neurotype, is that comfortable for you to make adjustments for everybody else? Do you feel like that just helps you do that? Or is there something within your character which likes order, or, you know, which I'm just kind of surmising, which actually makes that more difficult for you?
Oh, having people wandering around the back of the room drove me insane.
Like we're saying, we need to accept other people.
I knew that they need this. I don't know whether or not you've seen the pictures. One member of staff renamed a CPR mannequin Dave.
Sounds reasonable.
And was at the back, was sitting. She was listening, but she was taking selfies with Dave and dismantling Dave to see how Dave worked inside. But she was still listening. But if that's what it took for her to listen, then that's fine. If it takes someone, you know, the rail at the back of the cafe, if it takes someone swinging from that to stretch for them to be able to absorb the information, then that's fine. For me, it was really distracting. It took a lot of brain energy for me to keep on task. But everyone said they really enjoyed the training. It was very different to what they had previously experienced in terms of training, and they didn't feel like it was going to be death by PowerPoint at any point, or it was just going to be me lecturing. Personally, I'm a person as well who, as much as I can sit and write policies for hours, I cannot have someone talking at me for hours. After half an hour of someone just talking at me, I'm struggling to stay awake. So I can understand that end of it as well.
Well, it's really interesting that, Ellen, because that brings us to another subject which we do not have time for today. We still also have two more people in the waiting room, which at some point I want to bring in. But that is at schools. And I know that you are a qualified teacher and that you have worked as a primary school teacher. And all I see at the moment, honestly, I cannot tell you, all day, every day, on the parent threads, there's one for Bromley SEND and there's the CASPA one, and the discussions around schools, the school system, and just that one point alone that you just said, if that's what they needed in order to absorb the information, that is what is the adjustment in that moment, right? And me personally, I have a son who's neurodivergent. Yeah. If he hasn't got another screen going, he can't listen. But of course, at school, they can't have that, or they won't have that, or they can't make that adjustment for him. But he's then everywhere. He's an absolute pain in their backside, because what he actually needs is lots of different strands of kind of input so that he can kind of listen, hear, take in. So that's another discussion, the education one. But I want to, if it's all right with you guys, bring in a couple of other people. So I might just pop you guys into the studio kind of waiting room and bring in Aisha and Jason, just so that because they've been kind enough to join us. So I'm just going to pop you in there, if I can work out how to do it, because obviously I'm just... Okay, if I remove you by accident, and you actually go out, then do come back in if you want to, okay? Oh, yes, brilliant. I did it without actually removing him from the world. That's good. Okay, so I'm going to bring in the lovely Aisha. Hello, sorry, Aisha.
Hello, you all right?
Yeah.
No, I did earlier. I put myself in the studio, and I thought I was waiting, and I forgot to scroll up, and then it said enter.
Feels like you are somewhere very windy.
Oh, it's freezing out here. Yeah. I've just come from my mum, so I'm going back home.
I massively appreciate you coming in, but I'm just going to keep it relatively short because your sound is quite bad because of the wind. But what I want to know from you, Aisha, is why is Autism Acceptance Week important? Or is Autism Acceptance Week important for you?
Yeah, I do. Because for me, like growing up and stuff like that, for me not knowing that who I was and things like that, and now I've learned to like be with my peers and things like that, and knowing, you know, that there are people like-minded like myself and things like that. So it's nice. And I think also definitely like in the work side of things, when you said earlier about adjustments and things like that, like you said, it's just simple little things, like someone like, I don't know, music, a certain type of music helps them calm down. Why can't they have that bit of music just to get them to do their job? Or why can't, you know, rather than it being you have to do this. What about some people might just need one task at a time to do something, to be able to get their job done and stuff like that. And that is all about acceptance. Just throughout stuff, yeah, it's crazy. But I think that's sorry, just sit down somewhere.
Thank you, Aisha. So when it comes to working, you have been pretty successful in gaining employment. What are some of the key things that you feel have enabled you to gain employment, both with the school that you work in and then with CASPA?
I think having the support, especially from CASPA, and especially the support from staff as well, and the fact that you can just be yourself. Do you know what I mean? Staff or not. And just, I think it's about being with the peers to start with. It's being part of CASPA and learning about how people are and how different they are and how individual they are. And everyone is not all the same, because I've learned to be with my peers and stuff and learn to see difference in each one. And I think that's helped me like engage and be able to work for CASPA. And it's helped myself a lot because it's helped me learn a lot.
Yeah.
Say that again?
Sorry, I was going to say, so earlier on with Will and William and Ellen, we were talking about one of the things that I think we're quite good at as an employer is seeing people's skills, identifying them, seeing their strengths, and then seeing how we can harness them for good and for employment. And what is it that's your particular skill that perhaps when you first worked you didn't know you had, and now we all utilize for the benefit of everybody else? What is your skill? I think
probably my skill is just empathy. I think supportive, being patient with people, and yeah, just listening to people and listening to them and what they need and stuff like that. Especially like my friends and stuff like that. It can be the tiniest little thing that people don't see. Sometimes that's big, and you spot it, and then you might say, you know, you might go out one day and you might think, well, on this day, because I planned this day, this is what's going to happen when they come. So I know exactly a certain friend, it might be, I have to adjust the timings for them to come out because I know that they'll be late. So I then have to adjust things for them to make sure they're on time so that they don't go, you know, I'm sorry I was late. And I'll be like, no, you wasn't late, you was on time. Things like that, you know.
So good. I mean, this is an intrinsic thing that you have, right? This is not something that you've trained in. Like some people are brilliant mathematicians and they see things like graph paper just falls down like, or scientists or something very technical. You almost have that same ability, but around humanity and around other humans. Like you can predict what people are going to need and you listen to them, you see them very deeply and you can provide that support. And do you know what I'm so unbelievably excited about? And I think it's actually like a historical moment. An autistic person identified their greatest skill as empathy. And for years and years, people, clinicians, people, society have said that one of the things that autistic people lack is empathy. And we know that is absolute rubbish.
Exactly.
I mean, I literally am like my heart is pounding. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And anybody that's watching this can see, you know, listening to William, listening to Ellen, is an individual human being.
Yeah.
To their character. And I really, really appreciate you coming to share that. Aisha, what are you looking forward to working on moving forwards with CASPA?
I love working on the CASPA Connects and stuff like that. And working with these. So CASPA Next is a part of Discord. So it's got different channels you can go on, all about different interests. I work on the support channel. So I support people, as I said, people that are struggling, might be having a bit of a rough day, or just people that just want to have a chat and talk about how they're feeling and stuff like that. And it's just supporting them and giving them advice and things like that. So it's really, really good.
Brilliant.
And I
Yeah,
quite
so
like it.
it's a kind of an online social brokerage platform, isn't it? Discord. So it brings
Yeah.
people together, and you have different channels, and you work indeed on the support channel where there's a
Yeah.
particular session on a Wednesday evening, isn't there? And what you
Yeah.
provide is peer support, and absolutely incredibly, brilliant at it you are. So Sarah's just put residential. You looking forward to residential?
I am. So I am. I've been looking forward to that for so long. I've been preparing already. I know we're not in July yet.
No, good. All right, Aisha, I am going to let you go because I want to bring in a couple of other people back into the stream.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. I have so much love and respect for you, Aisha.
No worries.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
Take care.
It's cool.
Bye.
I will do. Bye.
Okay, sorry, Will. No warning. Just brought you back in.
Yeah, I was actually just said the host may bring you back without warning at the bottom left, and I was thinking I should won't do that.
Helen's bad practice.
No. I've been prepared.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to bring in a man that I admire, and that I think I'm not sure if you've met yet, but he's one of our CASPA trustees, and his name is Jason.
Hi, Helen.
Jason. How are you?
Hi. I'm well, thank you. Yourself?
Yes, good, thank you. Jason, we don't have very long, maybe another 10 minutes. Meet Will. I would say long-term CASPA member, but that means he was there at the beginning and then had some time off, and now he's back again, but in a staff capacity or volunteer staff capacity. Jason, do you want to kind of just give us a little brief introduction to who you are and why you're here?
I'm not sure why I'm here. That's one of the great mysteries of life. But basically, I'm a very recently diagnosed autistic adult. My wife is autistic. I have 2 boys aged 15 and 10 who are autistic also. And I crossed paths with you, I think, and cross swords occasionally, when we were working together on the 100-day project for Bromley to sort of try and improve things for the autistic community within the borough. And since then, I've become a trustee of CASPA. I now chair the Bromley Autism Partnership Board. And I'm strongly believe that with some really small adjustments, the world could be a much better place for autistic people.
What would be some of those adjustments, Jason?
It's things like when you're interviewing people, give everybody the questions you're going to ask in advance, so that then if people have processing delays, if people need time to think, then they've got the opportunity to give them their best selves. And by doing that, you're not disadvantaging anybody else, but you're giving those people a fair crack of the whip. It's things like, in the wider neurodiversity world, actually, historically, you'd throw out a CV if it had a typo, a spelling error. But actually, if someone's dyslexic, you're potentially discarding a very good candidate for them being who they are. So, it's just about thinking about the needs of other people across the board, and thinking, how can we meet them? So, lots of shops now are starting to introduce a quiet tower, but actually, do they need a quiet hour or do they need quiet days? Just think about the needs of the community. And I heard you talking earlier about schools, and it's about the schools doing what they should be doing anyway, which is adapting to the needs of the young people rather than expecting the young people to fit into the mold that they're trying to make. So it's about humanity, about just being decent people.
Thanks, Jason. That actually links back to something William was saying earlier, which was about people who are running spaces, whether it's educators, head teachers, charity leaders, employers, adjusting our expectations or being open to adjust our expectations rather than, like you're saying, you have to fit into this certain box. It's more of a collaborative kind of situation where just because somebody doesn't do a job how you would do it or how you would want them to do it doesn't mean they're not doing it, and doesn't mean they can't do it magnificently.
Whilst I absolutely hate the Rain Man sort of belief, that there's this mystical power, that, actually within autistic people there are talents, and they're not necessarily mega genius level talents, but people have talents. And what as a society we should be getting better at is accessing and exploiting those talents. And it might be by allowing someone to wear noise cancelling headset at work so that the air conditioning noise doesn't get to them. They're not being antisocial. They're just trying to be effective. It is about accessing a huge talent pool that's there, and accepting the fact that there are going to be things that we are very good at, things that we are not so good at, like the rest of the population. But you've got organisations like GCHQ who are actively looking to recruit neurodivergent people because they recognise the value in the difference in our way our brains are wired, and the fact that we can see things in a different way that other people might not.
Exactly that. Yeah, there's such a richness in that, William.
Yeah, I think based on following on from what Jason said, I think one of the things CASPA can do from a service user perspective is to give people the confidence to ask. So, for example, wearing a small set of headphones. I mean, these are noise cancelling headphones. They were actually a gift, and I wear these because I listen to music while I do things. So they're just headphones. But if I were working if someone actually really struggles with noise, they need to have the confidence to be able to say, actually, do you know what? I find loud noises, I find that air conditioning difficult. So therefore, I'd like to wear these headphones, and give them the confidence to ask rather than suffer in silence. Because for the most part, I think employers would think, yeah, okay, that's not a problem. But if they don't ask, they'll never know.
Yeah. And I think you can do a lot with your environment to at least create signs and signifiers that it's okay to ask around, being open, speaking openly, not being really rigid with people. And I think that's some of the work that I've done, especially with the Royal Geographic Society that I was talking about. In an old austere building like that, people feel like they have to behave in a certain way. But as an employer or as somebody who creates a public space, you can put in signs and signifiers that it's okay to be yourself. And one of the things it comes down to, of course, is the people. You can have, this is a quiet space, we have a safe space, we're autistic friendly, if you want headphones, ask. You can have all of the signs, actual physical signs, but it's the people.
But it's also, this being sort of the awareness week. I saw that the Emirates cable car are giving like bags with fiddle toys and things like that for neurodiverse kids for this week. You pick it up when you go on and you hand it in when you go off. Why is that a this week only thing? That's, they've identified that there's an adjustment that can be made that will make things better. So why can't they do that every day? It's not going to cost them a fortune. And it's it is those little adjustments, those little things that can make a huge amount of difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And like Will says, then create a culture where people feel more confident.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I'm really sad to say that we're coming to the end of our session. We weren't quite sure how it was going to go. I thought we might talk about, those kind of typical things we would talk about in Autism Awareness Week, such as the puzzle piece, person first versus identity first, language, inclusion. But we went off into another realm or a slightly different realm. So that's all good. I'm hoping that all of you, I'm just going to bring Ellen back in, although we're going to all be squished in, will join me again at some point in the near future to continue some of these conversations.
Look forward to it, Helen.
And getting some nods. Okay, I will follow up with all of you, and I hope that it was a positive experience for you this morning. Would anybody like to just say a final couple of words, either about this or about Autism Acceptance Week or about anything else? William?
I mean, goodbye. Really, I think there's a lot. I think people really need to know what their options, their rights are, and a lot of people will just get confused if you ask them what they need because they won't know what's available. This is especially true for people on the spectrum, but it's true for everyone to some extent. So making sure options and rather than we can provide adjustments is not particularly useful. What adjustments?
Very good point. So specifics and options rather than generic. We can do whatever you need. Yeah. Okay. Nice. Thanks, William. Ellen?
Yeah, like William was saying, saying what do you need when you don't know what you need can be really overwhelming. You start to go, I don't know, nothing at the moment. So giving time as well for people to work out what they need, because 5 minutes in, the aircon unit mightn't be irritating. After a week, it might be the only thing that they can hear, and actually noise cancelling headphones might be what they need for that. So yeah, giving people time to work out what needs they have in that environment. And it's going to be different for everyone in every environment, what is going to be their needs at that time. So flexibility would be important.
And communication, conversations. Are you okay?
Yes.
I noticed you were a bit whatever today. How, is there anything that we could have done differently? That kind of, yeah. And of course, that's time and having your mind on it, which is something.
And being open to learning about autism as well and how it affects different people. I've definitely realised that over the past year. Different managers will react differently to things, some positively, some negatively, and they need to be open to learning about it and not using their own preconceived stereotypes of what autism is going to look like or what an autistic employee is going to look like.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ellen. Fantastic. And Jason?
My hope is that the Awareness Week is a very short-term thing, because we won't need it anymore, because people will be aware generally, and we will have a better society because we are more open to the needs of people, whether it be physical needs, emotional, sensory. There's a huge population of people, not just neurodivergent, who need adjustments made for them. And when society just integrates that into everyday life, we won't need awareness weeks, and that's what I'm aiming for. That's what I'm going to keep fighting to make happen.
Brilliant. New campaign: eradicate awareness weeks. Right, thank you all so much. It's been fantastic to spend some time with you all, and thank you everybody for watching. If there was anything that came up that you were interested in discussing further, please get in touch with us. You can always contact CASPA by emailing contact@caspabromley.org.uk, and we hope you enjoy your weekend and the sun/snow that is forecast. And enjoy the rest of Autism Awareness Week if you appreciate it and are involved in it. Thank you all so much.